In this lesson, we'll cover guide grids. So you may say, what is a guide grid? Well, a guide grid has to do with your sheets and has to do with aligning views on your sheets. Let's say you're using the same view on multiple sheets. You'd like that view to line up, or you'd like all your views to be left justified or right justified, or starting in the same position on those sheets. How do you go about doing that? Where's your reference? Well, the guide grid is a reference that you can use to place your views on your sheet. Let's take a look at that. So right now we're looking at this sheet and it has several views on the sheet, but they're just randomly placed. I would like to actually place that within a grid so they could be aligned right to left, top to bottom, and also the views on other sheets could be aligned accordingly. So to create a guide grid, let's go to the View tab on your ribbon. On the View tab in the Sheet Composition panel, there'll be an icon for Guide Grid. Go ahead and click Guide Grid. Now, if you already have a guide grid, here you can choose it, but since we don't, we're going to create a new one. Just accept the default name Guide Grid 1 and click OK. Now, the guide grid is in blue, and it's basically blue squares, and it covers your entire sheet. If you click on the boundary of the guide grid, you'll see the properties in the left in the property area defining the spacing for the grid. Here you can change the spacing from what it currently is to something else. The guide grid can be used by simply snapping to intersections of the blue lines, meaning moving your views and snapping them to those intersections. However, when you look at this, you may say, this is real busy. There's a lot of lines. Can we do something with this? Well, the answer is yes. You can actually resize this grid. It's like a crop window. So when you click on the guide grid, you have 4 drag handles on each side, the top and the bottom. When you hold your left mouse button down on those, you can simply drag that guide grid across and down to resize it, for example. Then you can move it simply by moving your mouse over the grid and moving it to a new position or over a view that you need to align. Even though I only see this small portion of the guide grid, it actually extends across the entire sheet. So I'm only looking at a small area of it. And I'm doing this so that way I can actually see things a little better so it's not too busy. Since we have the guide grid, how do we go about using it? You can actually move or align your views to the guide grid lines, specifically their intersections. So I'm going to click in the background to make sure nothing is selected. And then I'm going to mouse over this view. When it highlights, click on it. And to verify it's selected, I should see its name in the property area on the left. Now, what I can do is use the Move command and basically snap some of the elements of the view, in this case, to the guide grid. So what I'm going to use is an intersection of the grid lines from within the view, and then snap them to the actual intersection of the guide grid. So I'll use the Move command, and then I'm going to move over one of the intersections of where my grid lines crisscross. Then I'll move that to where the guide grid lines crisscross and click it. And I've actually aligned this view on the guide grid. Now, you could also use walls, columns, and a variety of other things to actually align your view on the guide grid. Then when you're done, once you want to move and align another view, simply select the guide grid and then move it to its new position, and then do the same thing to another view. Select the view. Once you're in the view, I can use the Move command, select an element within the view itself, such as maybe this line here, drag it to the intersection of a guide grid line, and now it's aligned within that guide grid. To deselect, click in the background. The guide grid itself, I could leave it on my sheet. I could push it off to the side of my sheet. I could turn the visibility graphics of it off within the sheet as well too. So as a review, in this lesson, we talked about guide grids. Basically, a guide grid is a way to align your views within a sheet. It also allows you to align your views sheet to sheet so they're in the same position on those sheets. To create a guide grid, you go to the View tab, and in the Sheet Composition panel, select Guide Grid. You can change the properties of the guide grid, meaning increasing or decreasing the spacing. I can also resize the guide grid or the viewable area I see, although the guide grid covers the entire sheet. And lastly, select a view and then select an item within a view and move it to an intersection of a guide grid.